Welcome. Thank you for joining us here at our Meadows School alumni and parent Zoom panel. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Melissa Lustig. I'm one of the college counselors. I'm joined today by my colleague, co-director of college counseling, Michael Hallman, who many of you know, who's been here for 14 years. And together we have assembled an exceptional and talented group of alumni and parents who are here to talk about the transition from high school to college, the challenges and the excitement of this new phase in your life, the journey ahead of you. Back in April, we focused on COVID and college with the class of 2020, and we didn't get to chat as much about the nuts and bolts of the academic, social, emotional, financial transition and the decision-making process and the changes that you'll encounter. So we wanted to give voice to those topics and give students also an opportunity, students and parents, an opportunity to ask questions based on the current state of the landscape of the world right now that we're dealing with. But rather than leading another presentation, we wanted to give our students, our alumni and parents, a chance to contribute, to share their insights and their experiences. And they've graciously offered and volunteered their time for you this morning. So I hope this is valuable. A few minor administrative details before we begin, and I turn it over to our panelists. They will be introducing themselves, and I'll be asking a series of questions. Please feel free, students, parents, feel free to pose your questions in the Q&A section of the Zoom, because I will be checking that, toggling back and forth, or you can wait until the end of the panel and we can address your questions then. We realize we might go longer than 10:15, but we want to respect our panelists' time, so if they need to exit, we totally understand that, but if they can stay longer, of course, we greatly appreciate that. So with that said, I will turn it over to our panelists, as students, parents, to introduce themselves. Emily, would you like to go first?
Yeah, of course. Hello, everyone. I'm Emily Herndon from the class of 2019. I go to Bowdoin College, all the way up in Maine, very far from Vegas. At Bowdoin, I'm a neuroscience major as of right now. And on campus, I'm involved in a myriad of different things. I joined the curling team when I first got there, because when in New England, you kind of have to do such things. And then I'm also involved on the management for the college radio station, and I have my own radio show with some friends. And then I also work really closely with the community service center on campus. And on weekends, I volunteer at one of the local middle schools in Brunswick. And then I also volunteer to watch, babysit refugee children for families that are in Maine.
Thank you, Emily.
Mm-hmm.
Sydney Lee.
Hi guys, I'm Sydney. I went to Vassar College, also far from Vegas. It's in Poughkeepsie, New York, which is about an hour and a half north of New York City. There I was a drama major, a psychology major, and I was in the dance company, so that took up a lot of my time. I was also an RA at one point throughout my time, which is residential advisor for the freshmen coming in to give advice and such like that. And I graduated in 2019. So now I'm full-time in LA as a dance instructor, and I'm an actor.
Thank you. Robbie?
Hi everyone, I'm Robbie. I Meadows class of 2015, and I graduated from Columbia College in New York City in 2019. I was in the same class as Sydney. I majored in computer science and math. That was not what I initially came in as. I was interested in like political science and anthropology, so I sort of had a big shift there. During college, I was involved in a lot of different like campus activities. I founded a campus special interest dorm around comedy. then also was like very involved with computer science mentorship, teaching. I was a teaching assistant, and then also involved in research. And then during my time, I like volunteered with various organizations around New York. Yeah.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Samantha Seiff. I was TMS class of 2018. I just wrapped up my first year at Columbia in New York, where Robbie goes or went. I'm an English major and history major, and I do a lot of theater. Theater may end up being one of my majors at some point as well. I was involved in a bunch of shows with the Musical Theater Society, the Straight Play Society, and something called the Varsity Show, which is kind of like a combination of both. I'm in an a cappella group on campus, which is super fun. And I do a lot of like theater service. I had an internship off campus and just did that kind of thing. Yeah.
Sid and Christine.
Hi, I'm Sydney Romanofsky, and I was the class of 2019 with Emily. So I graduated last year. I go to Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas. I am part of the Hunt Leadership Program at SMU. And as of right now, I'm a business major, probably in marketing and sports management, but probably it'll change. I'm involved in Student Senate, Greek Life, this thing called Student Foundation, which they plan like the traditional like events on campus. So I am the coordinator of the homecoming parade this year. Hopefully that'll happen, even with Corona going on. And I'm also on the exec board. I'm the external affairs chair for my residential dorm. Oh, and this is my mom, Christine.
Hi there.
And Pauline, just a little intro. Oh, hang on.
Hi, I'm Pauline. I am starting my 22nd year with the Meadows School. I have 4 kids. Austin had graduated from Bates College, and Sydney did. So I have experience in installing 2 kids in, and then Ethan will be starting in the fall at Pomona, which only 2 weeks ago decided to go online. So there's been some challenges there, and we had on Saturday, Pomona had an all-day orientation for the parents to get ready for the online education for first semester.
I want to, open it up right now. I think one central kind of topic that's on everyone's mind is the matriculation process, enrolling, right, which is coming soon. And for our class of 2020, they'll be embarking on their freshman year. So we'd like to hear from you and both students and parents about how did you prepare for the transition? What kind of communications are you receiving from the colleges? How are you receiving communications? And kind of what that process is looking like, the move and the preparations and what communications you're receiving. So anybody can take that.
I can start with the tips that I would give to parents what you're going to do during the summer. So I strongly suggest the following. You got to get a checking account. You should get a checking account at a bank that possibly is there, or that will allow you to, with your student, to basically withdraw money from an ATM. So if you're like at Citibank, where you can use any of the banks without fees, that's a great option. But you have to be able to deposit money into their account in a very, very quick way. So that's number one, is a checking account and credit card, because they really should try to have 2 forms of cash payment. Because you can't be there, they need that immediate access to cash. I strongly encourage everyone to look at your medical insurance. I'm sure your medical insurance will cover your kids. If it doesn't, almost all the colleges will charge you for health insurance. It's called SHIP. And it's expensive and you don't need it. And the kids are probably already covered under your health insurance. Health records, you need to go and make sure that your kids get a meningitis shot not just one, the first shot, but both shots, shots 1 and 2, mainly because meningitis can run rampant on college campuses. So make sure you get all of your shots and all of your, any kind of drugs or prescriptions ready, and to make sure that there's a pharmacy near the college that can take care of that. And then 2 other things I noticed that my kids really used was an Uber account and Netflix. Sydney's laughing. Yes, that's true. They'll want to do some streaming, and sometimes they just want to have some me time. And so it's great if you could just add them onto your Netflix account so they don't have to pay for their own. And then also an Uber account connected to your credit card, so that if they ever get lost or they find themselves someplace where they're not feeling safe, they can easily call Uber and get to a safe place. So those are the things that I would recommend that parents do during the summer.
Thank you, Pauline. Great tips.
Yeah, so on the student end, everything that Pauline was saying is like exactly what I would say, like in the real prep, like especially the emails that I was getting from my college at the time was just like, make sure you get your shots, make sure you do XYZ. And I personally waited until the last second to like actually get those meningitis shots, and it turned into a very stressful ordeal. So that's something that you can get on right away. And I highly recommend doing it. Also, I don't know, it's like the last summer before college, it's like kind of a stressful time because you're like, oh my gosh, I'm like going into this new pool of people, and it's a great time to just like, of course, do like the heavy prep that's like required to like physically get there and like be safe when you get there, but also like just spend time with family. Like I would just recommend trying to chill out, because I don't know, in my experience, it was very nerve-wracking just feeling like, what student groups am I going to be a part of when I get to campus? Like, how am I going to find my people? And there's a lot of networking that you can do in advance on Facebook, but when I went to school, it was like, okay, I found my friends when I got there. And that's a very settling thing that I would want to remind you of.
Yeah, just jumping off of what Sam said, a lot of the mental preparation, the chilling out and stuff, but also if you have upperclassmen friends, I would reach out to them, ask to get a meal. I don't know if that's possible during this time in Vegas, but just say, hey, do you have any recommendations for moving in or the transition? Because they just went through that the year or 2 before, and they're gonna be super opinionated, I'm sure, about all of their thoughts that they just went through. So use the resources you have. There are so many kids at Meadows that want to give you everything. So ask them. And then, as Sam also said, the online things my school did an online Facebook group for my Vassar class. And I know Ethan's Pomona class is on WhatsApp or GroupMe or something like that. Connecting with people, not being afraid to just be like, hi, like I saw you're interested in dance, I'm going to be in the dance company, just simple things like that to ease any tension you may feel or worries socially or otherwise.
Yeah, so I know that when I first got into Bowdoin, that we had a Meadows graduate who had just graduated from Bowdoin. And so other than that, though, there was no one attending Bowdoin from Meadows. So I kind of felt like I was on my own and figuring out what the school was going to be like and such things. So I remember when I was trying to figure out how I was going to decorate my dorm and figure all that out, my mom and I actually found a girl at Bowdoin who vlogs, and she made a YouTube video showing around her dorm. And so that was actually so insanely helpful because I could see the dorm and see where everything was, which is kind of hard when you go to school in Maine because it's like you can't go visit and like look at the dorms as easily. And so that was a big thing for me, is there's a lot of people at the school now because of like YouTube and all that stuff that will post videos or pictures of what the school looks like. So if you're going to school somewhere really far away and it's hard to see the school, then those kind of things are definitely helpful. And then I also, just piggybacking off of Sydney and Sam, like definitely like I think it's super helpful to like join the online groups and meet people, because even if you don't like end up staying close friends with them or anything like that, just getting to campus and seeing someone that you know, like kind of like just enough to at least like recognize them and say hi or something like that is so comforting. Because coming from Meadows, where you know everyone and it's like you never feel like a stranger to anybody, to going to this new school where you don't know anyone, like just having some sort of online familiarity with people is huge in my opinion.
And the communications that you're receiving from your colleges, are they coming through your email portal? Did you set up do you have a specific email associated already with when you were, you know, even just coming into your freshman year? Did you have a portal set up? Was that how residential life was communicating with you? How about academic life and class registration, orientation registration? Was all of that, how was that being conveyed? Sydney?
Okay, yeah, I'm off mute. So everything is going through your email, and every college, I believe, sets up your own individual email. So if your child or if you are not checking that school email, I highly suggest doing that, because that's where all your information is coming in. For what was the other question that you asked? I forgot. It was about
like signing up for orientation. And
oh yeah, that just all goes through your email. But I highly suggest, like Sydney said, or I think everyone said it, reaching out to someone, because they know more than you. And I bet that you can find a Meadows alumni. If not, go on Instagram or Facebook and find somebody that like has class of 23, class of 22 in their like bios, and you can just like reach out to them. Everyone is normally so helpful and just wanting to give you all the information that they have and their experiences. But everything should be going through the email. So that's my personal take on it.
Great. And what of your colleges, I'm just gonna address the elephant in the room as far as I'm concerned, which is, you know, what the fall looks like. What have your colleges communicate? How have they communicated with you? What have they decided, and what are they doing? And you know, Pauline, you mentioned that Pomona just had an online kind of information session about going virtual for their classes. I mean, every college seems to be doing something completely different. So how have your schools communicated with you, and what are they doing?
So Pomona did a couple of things. They froze tuition, and they also are not charging us, thank God, any room and board. And what they're doing is they are reaching out to each of the students on a regular basis. They're also going to have dorm assignments, so that they will have a roommate immediately, and that roommate and a couple of the roommates will also have an RA. And they also will be doing clubs online. They'll be doing a lot of outreach. If you want to be a music major, for example, they will send you all the programs. They will send you, as part of your tuition, all of the microphones, all of the setup equipment. But the most important thing that Pomona said was to ensure and ask the parents to please make sure that the students continue to be engaged, number one, that they do get on, they do go to the office hours, because now they don't have the excuse of walking across campus. Now they can go to office hours very regularly. They are encouraged to talk regularly with their RAs and to actually get involved with all the clubs. And as a parent, you know, my job is to kind of stay out of the way, but at the same time, still encourage them to be in touch. And most importantly, for the kids, as parents, we need to make sure that they are physically fit, because that helps with their mental well-being. Some other things, you know, some of the colleges like USC are half online, half on campus. Some of the colleges are encouraging you to stay on campuses. Other colleges are not. I know that they've given some tips to the parents on what to do with your online student. For me, what we're going to do is we're going to have a curfew, which I know most college students don't have, but because he's living with us and I still have Mark is living with us. He will still have a curfew. He will have a budget for expenses. We have to set out straight out what the expectation or lack of expectation is for chores. You know, is he going to contribute to the family while he's online college? Well, yes, but also no, because he's supposed to have a college online experience. So we have to set that up. They're looking into finding ways for Ethan to touch base with the other kids who are going to Pomona or the 5C colleges, which is Claremont colleges. And one of the things that the college counselors did talk about was making sure that he moves on. In other words, limiting some of his activities that he did as a high schooler and having him move on to other experiences that are different and that will help him grow in whatever field he wants to grow in. So that's really a quickie summary of what Pomona discussed. I think it's really important. The biggest problem with online education is that it's so easy to just not show up.
Yeah.
Right? To not check your email. And so they encouraged the kids to check their emails every single day because that's where they're going to get their information. And for the parents to make sure that they're online, going to their classes. You have to be a little bit of a helicopter mom in that respect, at least. They said not the first couple of weeks, but typically around mid-semester. And then, so those are some of the tips that I thought were really good tips that I would share with other online college parents.
So yeah, I know Bowdoin was one of the first schools to announce that they were going online. And when it first came out, we were all horribly disappointed. But then we realized that Bowdoin's in like a really small town in Maine and they don't really have the facilities to deal with an outbreak or something like that. So it really was the best decision for the well-being of the whole area. But I know it was heartbreaking. So a couple of my friends and I actually found an apartment in Vermont and we'll be living in Vermont and taking our classes over there, partly because taking my online classes with the 3-hour time difference is kind of difficult. And even though the school has programs set up to accommodate it, it's kind of difficult. And so I'm getting over to the East Coast for half of the semester to be back on the time zone. But I know that with Bowdoin going online, they, like most every school last semester, had to do an emergency kind of online program at the end of the second semester. And it was really interesting because I obviously with neuroscience take a really STEM heavy course load. So I was in bio, neuro, and chemistry. And acting. And so those kind of classes don't really transfer well to Zoom because I was actually having to watch my chem lab professor do the labs on video and then just take the data and run like statistics on it and stuff like that. And it was just like a horribly weird situation. But luckily, I know that since Bowdoin knew from like the beginning of the summer that they were planning on going online in the fall, that like I've already had my organic chemistry professor reach out to me and tell me like what kind of programs they're putting in place for lab procedures this upcoming semester, along with another neuro professor and biostats professors. So I think a lot of the big thing is that the schools right now, especially the ones that are going online, are aware of the fact that it isn't the best model that they wish they could provide, but a lot of them, even the STEM and performing arts classes, it sounds like are really attempting to find ways to make them accommodable, to like make them easier to use on Zoom. So I'm hopeful that it all will turn out as well, like very well.
So I'm in a very similar position to Emily because Columbia is having all first years and sophomores and incoming transfer students go on campus for the first semester, and then juniors and seniors are going to be on campus second semester. So my best friend at school and I were talking about like getting an apartment in New York City just so we could like be there and like do classes. And then we realized, maybe New York City isn't the best place to be if like there's an outbreak. So I'm opting to stay at home in Las Vegas. I'm an English major and like a history major, so it's like very easy for me to, I guess, do those classes online. I had a pretty easy transition with my English classes last semester and over the summer, but my acting classes, I had a really like wretched transition to like getting online. So what I'm opting to do is find stuff here in Vegas. I think Vegas is kind of, I feel like there's going to be some opportunities to do theater here more so than if I were in New York, just kind of living independently. So I'm looking forward to see if that's going to happen. But yeah, Columbia, I'm going to be online for this upcoming semester.
I just want to say I'm different. I'm not totally online yet. So I have a couple different experiences. Right now, SMU is saying that they're doing a hybrid model where half the classes are going to be online, half the classes are going to be in person. So, and they are like very accurate. Half my classes are online as of right now. But for students that are in the same situation as I am, like Emily said, that Bowdoin announced it really early that they were going fully online. And that's really nice because she was able to figure out, okay, I'm going to get an apartment, and which I highly suggest. And I'm trying to convince my mom right now in the process. But, you know, she was able to prepare. Whereas if you're a student and your university hasn't said anything yet, you're like, what do I do? So unfortunately, like nothing's for sure. And I did mention that I was on different organizations. So I have had different meetings because we have to start planning this stuff. And basically what it sounds like is SMU can pull the plug at any time they want to, which is unfortunate. No one knows what they're doing. And hopefully this doesn't happen, but in case you are sent home, like, what do you do? Obviously, you know, I think Sam, Emily, and I were all in the same situation where we were all kind of just sent home and we didn't know whether or not we were coming back. So it was really confusing. I personally drove back from Dallas because I didn't want to go through airports because it just like the outbreak reached Dallas at that time. And I was like, I'm not risking this. Yeah, I would at least plan. I have a very bad feeling that for the universities that haven't said anything that they're not going online, I have a very bad feeling that we're all going to get to campus and then we're going to be there for 2 weeks. There's going to be a horrible outbreak and then they're going to send us all home again. So before I go, I'm going to like plan something with my mom just in case that does happen. But I was on a Senate meeting yesterday, and there was a woman that was answering all of our questions. She mentioned this website called Open Smart EDU. And I never heard of that before, but she said that a lot of the colleges are basing their models off of that. So there's like 4 different types of like risk factors. And that's how the school is going to respond, at least for the ones that are like opening up. But I highly suggest if you would like to go check it out. I like looked at it for about 2 seconds, but it's called Open Smart EDU. And I bet that a lot of the colleges are going to be basing their decisions off of that.
Well, and it sounds like, I mean, every college is doing something a little bit different. And the only way to know what your school, how your school is opening and operating is going directly to the source and calling your school or asking your institution and specifically. Christine, did I see your hand?
Sure. You know what? I was just going to follow up on something that Sydney said, and it's Emily Ebel had recommended this to me on move-in day to check storage stuff for when they move out. So a whole year in advance. But with the COVID, if you're far away and you can't get your stuff back, you're not driving back, it's really good to maybe when you go for orientation to look at a storage place. I was able to put a credit card on file because they won't rent to anybody under the age of 21. So I would suggest doing that just so you have a backup. And then I know SMU had an option where they could move the kids out, or if you had your own storage, you could get a mover yourself. And of course, we didn't know, like everyone else, that was happening, but we were very happy that we didn't have to drive over 100 miles. All the storage units were full. So that would be a tip I think I would suggest.
Yeah, you kind of want to do everything in your power to try to avoid them moving you out, because that's just a mess in itself and it's really frustrating. But obviously they're more prepared now. Like, no one knew that was happening, so it was really a mess. But
So I rented this January when I came in, I guess, for your
Yeah.
rush week. And at that point, they were almost filled. So I don't know if it's just the area in Texas that she's at, or, you know, with a lot of the colleges around, but it's something that I would check into. And also back on the health issue, when you're on campus with your student, I would actually take them to the health center and the pharmacy and introduce yourself. They won't remember you, but you will remember them. And Sydney did have quite a few health issues last year, so we learned about that system. And one thing that I found really interesting, I don't know if you're taking the insurance that the school offers, but if you do, if a child doesn't go, if they have a cold and they don't go to the health center and maybe they go to the quick care across the street, it could be thousands of dollars more in money. So that's something to, when you go to the health center, talk to them and find out exactly where they're to go, what kind of medical forms you have to sign, and what do they do if they need a specialist. You know, so kind of get that in a row, I guess, organized.
Kind of going along the lines of the move-in process, right? I mean, if you are moving in, if our freshmen are moving in, do you recommend then that, I mean, did all of your parents basically come with you? Did you ship boxes? Did you drive? Did you take your car? Who helped you? What was that process like? Yeah, Sydney, Lee?
Yeah, my mom and my dad came. And because it's New York, as a lot of our schools seem to be on the East Coast, I had everything I needed in 2 suitcases and a backpack, which for me was hard. Any parent out there, do not pack a ton of stuff. It is going to be so hard for you to come back, and the storage is going to be even worse. So pack light, especially with what Sydney was saying with COVID and possible, you know, moving things into storage. You want to make this semester particularly easy to move back and forth. Both parents came with me. My mom did the heavy lifting. Surprisingly, my dad got snacks. You got to have both, you know? So it was nice for me. Also recognize that Vegas weather is so specific to that part of the country. It's heat, but it's dry heat. And on the East Coast, oh my goodness, the humidity, I thought my face was gonna melt off. If you have naturally curly hair, it'll spring into action. So just be like cautious of things that are different. Weather's gonna be a big one. Social culture for me was huge. I feel like at Meadows, our hot spots are downtown Summerlin, Red Rock, those kind of things to hang out. And on the East Coast, it was like hiking, kayaking, and I was like a fish out of water. It was fun, but just recognize the transition, going to college, what you may encounter, think about everything. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I've been I was a little bit confused on how to talk, but anyway, sorry about that. Yeah, so I think I would basically just echo what Sydney said. Like, don't leave Vegas with more than you want to have to come back with. Like, so I did the same thing. My dad just came with me to Vegas, or not, to New York, and we just came with 2 suitcases. And then when we left, I had accumulated a bunch of stuff, and so it was not like, shipping was as expensive as renting a car to drive back across the country. So my dad just told me, you're going to drive back across the country. And so, yeah, that's just like, that's one possibility that you might have to face is when you do eventually graduate, you have to leave and come back with a lot of stuff if you choose to keep it. I personally wanted to hold on to my books, and then that was basically my main issue. But yeah, I would effectively say just like try to leave with as little as possible. You can get a lot of stuff that you need there. You don't actually need to you don't need to go to college with everything that you could possibly need. There's still stores where you're going to be going. Yeah, that was effectively what I would say.
Emily and Sam.
So I wish I'd heard Sydney and Robbie's advice before I went, because I did not do that at all. I packed way too much. It was horrible. And so both of my parents came to move me in, and it didn't seem like I had brought that much when I had two other people there with suitcases, because it was just like, oh, we all have like 2 suitcases or something like that, and it's all my stuff, but it's fine. But when COVID struck, then suddenly I realized, oh God, like I didn't want my parents flying, because I flew back to Maine to pack up all my stuff, and I didn't want my parents coming because I didn't want to accidentally expose them to anything. So I asked them to stay home so I would fly out there by myself. So I flew out there, and as soon as I got back to my dorm and started pulling suitcases and like boxes out from under my bed, I realized what I'd done. I was like, oh God, I made a huge mistake. I have so much stuff here, because especially, you know, in Maine and East Coast weather, it's freezing up there. So I had these giant coats that were like so heavy and thick. And so I actually ended up renting a storage unit with 2 or 3 of my friends, and then an upperclassman with a car drove us to the storage unit to put our stuff in. So luckily that came through, but still with all of my clothes and stuff, I realized I still had so much packing to do. And so my boyfriend came over and helped me get it all in the suitcases. And the next day when I had to go to the airport, I had like 4 or 5 suitcases with me, and I looked so silly walking around the airport trying to like push all of these suitcases. And I'm on the phone with my mom, and I'm like, I know I'm trying to protect you from COVID, but I really wish you could have come, because I look so dumb right now in the airport with all of these bags full of winter clothes and stuff that I'm never going to use in Vegas again. But like, I would definitely say take that advice. Try to pack less. It's okay if you don't have a bunch of clothes. Like, it's gonna be fine. Like, try to pack less.
Sam, I know that you wanted to, and Sid.
Yeah, I want to just echo all of this, because when I moved into Yale my first year, I made the colossal mistake of like bringing my entire life with me. Like, it was just kind of like silly. Like, both of my parents came with me. I had a million suitcases. We had gone to New York, because the New York airport's like the one that's closest to New Haven, and we were just like, we had a crash pad, like an apartment, and like we just started accumulating stuff in New York City, which is the worst idea. And so we like could barely fit it all in like the SUV that we rented. And by the time we got to New Haven, it was easy to get all the stuff up to my room. Surprisingly, I had a 5th floor walk up, and there were like all these crews of people, like all these students were like upperclassmen. That's something that's pretty common actually that I want to mention when you move in. Like usually upperclassmen, that was my experience both at Yale and Columbia. They are there waiting for you at your dorm, and they'll like bring all of your stuff up to your room, and it takes the biggest weight off of your shoulders, literally. And then when I got to my room, I realized it was the size of a closet. Like, it is definitely the smallest room that I've ever seen in my entire life, and I had to share it with another person, and I couldn't fit my suitcases in the room, let alone with this other girl's stuff. So that is something to take into account, because I just didn't even think about it. And my roommate was like a New Yorker, like she had it all figured out, like she had an older sister or whatever, and my parents had like the most frantic energy just trying to cram everything into the room. So I think if you could take anything from like all 4 of us that have spoken, just pack light. You can always have your parents ship stuff out later if you're missing it. Don't bring your winter stuff if you're going to an East Coast school. Have them ship it. You might go home for Thanksgiving, bring it then. Don't screw with that, because jackets are heavy, sweaters are huge. Make the winter stuff a second thing. Make your summer stuff a priority. Yeah, those are my words of wisdom.
Sid, did you want to?
Yeah, so same kind of thing that Sam just mentioned. I kind of like found a hack. So when you go, bring your summer clothes. And then when you go back, I literally went back 3 times. I went back for fall break, Thanksgiving, and winter break. So you can like switch your clothes out. So like leave all your winter stuff at home, and then if it starts to get cold again, like bring your winter stuff like back and just like switch it out. That's kind of what I did. My mom moved me in, which was super nice because I was like going through orientation, and then I kind of just like came back and my room wasn't done. So, well, we lifted it all in, and then she like organized it and made it pretty. So that was nice. But this time I have to move myself in because like the rule with Meadows, like if you travel outside or whatever, then Michael can't go to school or something like that. And also I don't want to risk her exposure to the virus. So I honestly still have no idea how I'm going to do that. My friend offered me her car, which was really nice yesterday. And everyone kind of just wants to help you out. But if you are going back on campus, Sam mentioned that upperclassmen will be waiting to help you, like move your stuff in. And that will not be the case for you guys, unfortunately, because like at least for SMU, and I'm assuming a lot of the other universities will be doing the same thing, they're not having people help you, that you're assigned a certain time, you have, you know, a certain time frame, and then you're out and that's it. But they won't have people helping you because social distancing or whatever. But as for like the room size and stuff, I figured out what dorm I was in. At least for SMU, everyone found out about like 4 days ago what residential commons they were going to be in. I highly suggest like stalking people on Instagram and finding like the exact like the location that they put. That's what I did, and see what dorm they're in, or like reach out to people, ask for pictures, and then ask them. I basically copied this one girl's room because she had everything organized. It was perfect. But my room was a lot bigger than I thought it would be. So I was prepared on like what to bring, what not to bring, but I highly suggest reaching out to someone to see how big your dorm actually is and their experiences moving in, because everyone is different. And then,
So on that, actually on your thing, Sam, with the minivan, well, not minivan, the SUV. So I was going to rent an SUV, and then I was in Texas. So when I got to Texas, they said, "Oh, rent this truck." And let me tell you, I couldn't. She had to push me up into this truck. It was so high, so big. But that would be, I would do that over again, because everything, as you know, right? The SUV, you're crammed. Everything's crammed in there with the truck. You just throw the heavier stuff on top. You do it in one trip. You're done. So that's something that I think, that's a tip I think I would offer out. Mm-hmm.
And along those lines, Christine, I mean, and everybody, one of the questions in the Q&A was, should you bring a car? Can you have a car on campus your freshman year? In light of the current situation, and I know this might be different in New York, but what are your thoughts about that?
So really, I think about location. Yeah. You know, it just depends on location. I know there's no reason other than going out, but back to you, Pauline, if you're opening, so the Uber bills, just make sure you're not becoming a party truck or something. You know? Watch the Uber bills and see what's there Friday and Saturday night. You may have visited multiple places. So anyway, yes, I would keep track of the Uber bills, and no, I don't think you need a car in Texas. So everything's right there. But I think, again, that goes off location, right, Pauline?
That's exactly what I did, was to keep our kids in a way that was non-intrusive. I would look at the Uber bills and also use Life 360, which I think, you know, most parents use Life 360 nowadays.
What's that, Sydney?
And the reason why, the thing is, I think it's great because then you know that they're safe, and then you don't. I never called Sydney and say, "Hey, where are you?" Right, Sid?
Yeah, no.
I just, as long as she was within the area, if she went to New York City, then I would track her. And there were times when she would go off somewhere like New Orleans to visit friends. And this, it's really a safety.
I would say I agree with that. That Life 360, I think kids get very like anxious over the idea of their parents tracking them, but it's like, I'm not doing anything weird and wild that my parents going to be like, oh my gosh, like we can't have you come home anymore. Like, even if it is kind of wild, they're going to be like, what are you doing? I'm honest. And then they're like, okay, I'd much rather be honest with my parents than have something bad happen to me and they don't even know, which would be like 1,000 times worse. On the note of bringing a car to campus, if you're a freshman with a car on campus, everyone is going to be asking for a ride or to borrow your car. just letting you know, no matter where you are, especially on the West Coast schools where everything is so car heavy. I mean, I imagine even in Texas, East Coast, it could be a little different with public transportation, but everyone's going to want to know if they can borrow your car to move into their apartment or move to a different apartment or go to a class or something, just all the sorts of things. So it's nice to have a car, but just keep in mind that if you do have that car, people will ask you occasionally to borrow it. And it's going to be a hard conversation to be like, no, you know, or if however you feel.
So yeah, I know one of the big things is Bowdoin doesn't let first years have cars on campus, and I don't know how common that is for other colleges, but I know that is a rule at some colleges. And then also one of the things is that my mom set up like an Uber for me. I had that, but unfortunately in rural Maine, there's like 2 Uber drivers and they're like not really, like they're operating at really weird hours. You never know if you're going to get one. So I had to like plan ahead if I was going to the airport even and like call a taxi company ahead of time. And coming from Vegas, that was so something I wasn't used to. I was like, wow, I am really in small town America right now. And so in my experience, in like the coming years, I will probably end up bringing a car to Maine just because when you don't have like a reliable public transportation or Uber taxi, it's kind of difficult. But I had a convertible Volkswagen Bug when I like here, and that's just not the kind of car you can drive in Maine where it's snowing and the weather's really bad. So that's kind of something that my family's had to talk about what our plan is in that regard. But I know that if you're going somewhere that it's a really small town and Uber isn't super reliable, when you're an upperclassman, you might want to consider a car.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I'm saying a lot of what's been said, but like both of the campuses that I was on, like cars were not a thing. Like in New Haven, like the campus is like a little big, but it's not like something that you would need a car for. At Columbia, like it's just a non-issue getting around New York. Like there's the public transportation like is the way you do it, and it's really fun and great. However, my boyfriend went to the University of Michigan, and he like got a car his senior year that like changed the way that he was able to function there, like because the campus is gigantic. The public transportation was a little difficult to get around, and like it really just changed his experience to have a car on campus in his final year. So I think like, I don't know who's asking the question, I don't know where the kid is going. Like if it's a campus that's massive like UMich, like that's definitely something to take into account because it really can change your experience.
I had a friend whose daughter attended University of Tennessee, and she Ubered to class many times. So,
You know, the problem with a car is that you have fuel and maintenance costs. And you don't want to have to take that time to go get an oil change. Or if something's wrong with the car, even if it's a new car, the wipers aren't working. Guess what? That's time out of your day to take care of it because your parents aren't there to take care of it. So I would strongly discourage anyone from having their first year take a car.
Especially if it snows.
oh, right. Robbie? Wait.
Sorry, it's muted. Yeah, I was just gonna add on to that with basically like, so I'm currently in Berkeley doing my graduate program, and something that I was doing, at least like for my first year here, is like I'm not gonna get a car. I don't need to. And Sydney made the point about people always asking to borrow your cars or use a ride. I'm shamelessly that person, and I think most people are very willing to give rides, and I find it a good social experience. And like after your first year, I think if you realize you need a car, you can get one then. But it's not a decision that I think you have to make right away.
Great. So let's see, we could talk about, from here, we can talk about anything like time management and kind of what that adjustment is like, or we could talk about the academic experience. I
did have some tips for parents who are traveling with their kids to drop them off. And I think these tips are tips that I've given other parents and they've been really thankful.
Good.
First of all, with luggage, try to use duffel bags because then they can flatten them out after they empty them. If you use hard luggage, it just takes up so much space in the dorm. Yeah. Some of these, and then also wash your linens that you think you're going to put on the bed. Some people go to Bed Bath & Beyond and they pick up their linens there, but the problem is you really want to wash them before you put them on the bed. So bring some washed linens instead of just picking them up from Bed Bath & Beyond. Also, I would strongly recommend to parents to get their roommate's name, number, cell phone, and then their parents' contact number, because Sydney got sick and was put in the hospital for a day or two, and that really freaked me out. And if it weren't for the fact that her roommate called me, I wouldn't have known that she was in distress. So parents, take the time to do that, even if your kid is telling you how embarrassing it is, because it could be life-saving, really, for you. Also, I recommend this. I did this for Sydney and Austin, is to get a UV light, because I think you underestimate the amount of sunshine we get here in Las Vegas. It's very different from the rest of the country, especially East Coast. And if just having that UV light can really help you with your mood. Without it, even, as much as there's a lot of sun in Dallas and Houston, or even in the Southeast, it's just not the same. I strongly recommend a UV light for parents to get. And then also, don't buy storage items until you get there, because you really don't know what you are going to need until you get there. The beds might actually be like bunk beds, or they might not be. And if you have the ability to do so, bring wrenches and tools and screwdrivers. You don't want to have to buy them there. I mean, if you want to, I suppose you can. And then, just all you need is one great outerwear jacket, right, Emily and Sam and Robbie? You just need one. You don't need a ton. And that's the one that's the most versatile. And that's the one that you're going to bring. And then you'll exchange or decide to buy more during second semester. But those are my tips for all the parents. And also, finally, try to schedule a time when you're actually going to check in with your student. I mean, you can check in versus via using text, but the problem is, I think you just want to see them to make sure they're okay, because they may be gaining weight, losing weight. They may look stressed. I think with Sydney, we tried to set it up like Sunday night, and then there were other times she would just arbitrarily call me, but at least check in with them once a week. Use text and FaceTime just so that you can monitor your kids' mental health, because especially during this crisis, you're going to really want to make sure that they're okay. Well, those are my tips.
Thank you, Pauline. Emily, and then Robbie.
So my dad actually made sure to buy me a toolkit before when I went to college, and I thought it was so goofy. Like, all my roommates are like, why do we have hammers and screwdrivers? Like, none of us are in engineering or anything like that. Like, no one needs a toolkit. And I thought it was so goofy. And then my friend called me and she's like, help, I bought a bike online because I wanted to bike, and it came disassembled, and now I don't know how to put it together. So I called up some of my friends, and my friend was like, oh, I can build the bike easy, but I don't have any tools here. And I call it, and I was so excited because I pull out my toolkit from on my closet that I'd never used before. And he's like, why do you have a toolkit? It's like, my dad told me I needed it. So actually, yeah, the toolkit can kind of come in handy, surprisingly. So there's an LL Bean headquarters in Maine, which is super appropriate for it being Maine. So I ordered my coat online and had it kind of to pick up once I got there. So that was super. If there's some sort of coat factory in your area or something like that, to be able to pick up your coat from there is really nice. And I'm not sure, are we getting into the academic one now, or are we just?
No, I think we'll round out. Well, unless you want to go for it. I mean, feel free. Whatever you'd like to talk about.
I can do a quick synopsis of my kind of academic experience.
Yeah, sure.
I know if you're interested in doing any kind of STEM major, any sort of engineering or pre-health or anything like that, a big thing that I didn't really know was like kind of something to take into consideration until college is your lab courses, because at Meadows when you're in high school, you do your chem and bio lab like during class time. And so when I got to college and they're like, okay, here's your schedule for classes, and then here's your 4-hour lab to sign up for, and then here's your 5-hour other lab to sign up for. It's like, well, why the heck do I have these on my schedule too? So if you are going into STEM, take into account that with your schedule, I had to plan like my extracurriculars in accordance with the fact that I was going to be taking a 4-hour bio lab and 5-hour chem lab every week too. So you really have to kind of, if you're going into a STEM major, you be aware of the fact that you're going to have to make some sacrifices for that too.
Awesome, thank you. Robbie, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I think I was just gonna touch on the earlier stuff before the academics. Just there's like a bunch of random notes I've been thinking about. One of them, this was said earlier on, I think Pauline said it did, so make sure you have a bank close to campus. That's something I didn't do. I had Wells Fargo, which is everywhere in Vegas, but in New York City, it's nowhere to be found, and the closest one was like 40 minutes away. It was always an exercise to get more money. The second thing is that I would also say like I had a pretty like go with the flow sort of attitude to like getting what I needed. I very much erred probably on the side of not having enough. And it was so much so that my dad visited me in the middle of my first semester, and I still didn't really have like a winter coat. And he's like, you know, there's seasons here in New York, right? And I think he tried to really get the point across. We were just walking across campus, and then he would just like point at random people, and he'd be like, "Wow, that's such a nice coat. Where'd you get it?" And so he was trying very hard to embarrass me into action, and it worked. But oh god! And then the other thing is relating to like tools and stuff. That was also something that my dad did, where he would just, for Christmas, he didn't know what to get me, so he would just get me like office supplies. And different things. So like I showed up to, I think after the Christmas after my freshman year, or during my freshman year, I showed up with a bunch of batteries. My dad gave me like 200 batteries. And for most, that's really worthless for most of the 21st century needs. But like every once in a while, someone would be like, does anyone have a battery? And I was able to raise my hand proudly and save the day. I still have those batteries today. Don't know how useful it was.
My parents gave me quarters, because back in the day, you needed lots of quarters to do your laundry.
Yeah, I mean, quarters would still be very useful. I need my laundry machine needs quarters right now, and none of the banks are giving out quarters because of COVID. So it's really, but yeah.
All right. Anybody else? Yes, Sydney, either.
Either one. I was just gonna speak on. You were speaking about time management before.
Yeah, I had asked, I mean, one of the things that seems to be really apparent, especially as we're going online, I mean, during the spring semester, students really had to take ownership of their time and,
yes,
keep track of their schedules, when classes were meeting, dedicate time to working on their homework and projects. And I mean, in college, even without, the pandemic, I think time management can be very complicated, and it's very different than in high school. So I'm curious to know, like, how you managed your time, what helps, and also kind of like, right, when in an online environment, if you're having to transition differently, if you're having to do different scheduling techniques. So what helped with time management?
Yeah, I'm sure Robbie and I feels like a different age because we're not exactly going through COVID, and I know there are a lot of distractions at home. I see it with my little brothers when they're trying to get work done. And I feel like everyone in college has experienced a semester where all the things you want to do is scheduled at the exact same time on the exact same day, and there's no way to get around that. And one thing I forgot to mention earlier with the prep before going into college that was profoundly useful and I didn't know it would be is that summer before I kind of listed out for myself what I really wanted to get out of college and accomplish there. And for that was like fine-tuned writing skills, etc. And it was just something that I thought I'd do for myself. So that when you do have those conflicts, you can think, well, honestly, my dance choreography feels more of a priority than that party or something like that. Finding where your priorities lie. You can try to do it all. I've always been a big believer that if you want to do it enough, you're always going to find a way. And it has been the case, but then it's really going to start to dwindle out for you what really matters. And that would be, I mean, I know my mom was like, we tried to schedule once a week Sunday talks. Like there would be, mom, like a month that I accidentally wouldn't reach out to you. And then you text me being like, are you still alive? And my dad would be like, maybe once in a while, just give a thumbs up. You know, that's all we ask for. And it was because after a while, I know my senior year, I had my senior drama thesis and my dance choreography on top of my psychology major. And for a while, my friends were like, where are you? Like my social life kind of dwindled, but it didn't feel like it was like, oh, a big thing I had to sacrifice. It was just, this was where my priorities were. I really wanted to achieve this and get this done. And my friends were always going to be there at the end of the day. In terms of scheduling classes, 2 classes are at the same time. What is a priority in your schedule at the time, during the year that you're in? Plan it out for yourself. Take the liberty of writing out your 4-year plan if you want to. It always gives people comfort to organize a little bit.
Thank you. Sydney Ramnowski, did you have something?
Yeah, on the topic of like time management stuff, I'm a firm believer in that it's like a work hard, play hard environment. So basically, like if you want to go out and you want to have fun, you can totally do that, but you have to make sure that you get your stuff done first. And I think that everyone else like has very similar experiences that I did, where you're just, you know, everyone says you're over prepared, and when I was in high school, I was like, no way, they're all just lying. But I feel like the workload at Meadows was the reason I was so over prepared, because there's so many kids that just like didn't have homework at other like high schools, and they don't know how to time manage because they just have never had that kind of workload. But that's why it was kind of easy for me to adjust, and I'm sure everyone else has a lot of other insight. But I did want to talk about something that we were discussing earlier, which is roommates, kind of. Mrs. Lee mentioned that Sydney got sick, and she felt better because she had the contact information with the roommate and their parents. But the question is, what do you do if you don't trust a roommate or their parents? And so when I went to college, roommate was the biggest thing for me. I wanted, you know, everyone wants a great roommate experience. They don't want the textbook horror stories. But what do you do if you do have textbook horror story of a roommate situation? And unfortunately, I do have experience with that. So if you do have any questions, I'm more than happy to give advice because I did end up moving out. And the reason for that is because she wasn't a crazy partier, or anything. And I'm not trying to say this to scare anyone, any parents out there. It does happen. You just don't think it's going to happen to you. But she put herself in situations where her life was in my hands. And you have a responsibility as a roommate, you know, to take care of each other, but not when it gets dangerous. There was a situation at 3 a.m. one time where I was about to take her to the hospital. And the reason I didn't is because, one, I didn't have a car, or else I totally would have. The other friend decided not to, but the health insurance card, none of us knew where it was. And so if you don't, if you don't trust a roommate, make sure you tell a close friend or a couple close friends where your health insurance card is. Because I was like, what happens if something happens to me? And like, you know, no one can help me because they don't have my health insurance card or something like that. But I guess all in all, like short advice would be, I didn't want to tell my mom what was happening because I didn't want her to stress out. And I kind of didn't want to admit what was happening. I didn't want to admit the situation was real. So I just didn't talk about it. I acted like everything was okay. Even though I knew everything wasn't okay. And like my mom would call, my mom and I talked basically every day, and she would be like, is everything okay? And I'd be like, yeah, totally fine. I definitely suggest telling your parents because they might have insight and they might be able to help you out of the situation. I think I would have been out of my situation a lot earlier if I did tell her. But also tell your RA everything so they can document it. I became best friends. Sorry, my phone's ringing and it's extremely loud.
Use your RA.
My RA and I ended up being best friends, like because I just met with him over and over again. make sure they have everything, because they have to write things down. And I begged him not to like document it, because I didn't want to have to go through the process and whatever. And I was like, it's not that bad, but it was that bad. But it was easy for me to move out because he had documentation of everything. So definitely, and if you don't trust your RA, I know a lot of people not trust your RA, but if you don't have a good RA that you feel like you can confide in, then find an RA on the floor, or find someone that you can talk to. But I was able to move out into, I guess they call it a dingle, where it's a double room, but you don't have a roommate. So that was my second semester until I got sent home. Unfortunately, I had like a king bed. I put the beds together. It was really nice. I was like living in an apartment. But so, I mean, everything ended up working out for me, but I think it's only because I told my RA everything. I mean, he had documentation from the very beginning. So I'm also open to answering any other questions, but that's the
important thing, is they were able to keep her safe.
Yeah, they were able, yeah, that's the most important thing as well. They were able to keep her safe and me safe, and that was the end of it. But
Sam, did you have, thank you, Sydney. That's really, really important. Thank you. Sam?
Yeah, so when I was at Yale, I had a roommate that like I didn't really vibe with, and I also had like the roommate fantasy, and like I'm the person who like wants to be on great terms with everyone, and my roommate had just some habits that like didn't really jive with me. She wasn't like a bad person, nothing as severe as what Sydney's experience was, but like she would watch TV really loudly until 2 a.m. I have a very early bedtime because I had early morning classes, and I just couldn't like muster up the strength to be like, please like put on a pair of headphones, which in retrospect is such a like negligible thing. But I had it built up to the point where like, I don't know, like if you're like a more like shy person in some ways, like it's very difficult to like have like these roommate negotiation skills. And it turns out that's an extremely important thing, because this isn't like your best friend who you can just like talk to. Like this is like someone who you're all of a sudden like sharing a space with. Very different experience. So I don't know, like find a way to just make sure that you or your kid, like they're like advocating for themselves. I didn't do a great job of that at Columbia. I had a great roommate, very different situation. And I was, you know, ready. I went in ready to like negotiate. I had all my cards on the table, and it's just a much more pleasurable experience if you can find a way to assert yourself to an extent. And I don't think I'm a mean person. I don't think I was ever mean about it. There's a middle ground. Also, maybe just to circle it back to like the academic experience, time management, all of that. At Meadows, something that I keep going back to is it's like a very well-oiled machine. Like everybody's working with each other. Like I did theater, I did student council, I ran clubs, whatever. Like it was just like I was able to do literally everything. And I'm not saying you can't have that same experience in college. I'm just saying there are sacrifices that will have to be made. I'm not much of a partier. I don't go out a lot, and I still was struggling just because I wanted to like keep my GPA up. I wanted to like memorize my lines and show up to rehearsal in advance. Okay, also rehearsal, I had in high school like maybe 7 to 8 hours of rehearsal a week, like in a busy week. In college, like if you do several shows, if you have an a cappella group, like whatever it is, I had up to like 30 hours of rehearsal easily in a week. So it's just like your classes and your rehearsal schedule, or like if you're in athletics, whatever, like it's much less of a negotiation and much more of like a, this is how it is. Like you're going to have to work around that.
I have to leave. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you, Pauline.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, but I just want to hammer home that like that it's just like really possible to like do everything at Meadows. And I did everything at Meadows and sacrificed my sleep. In college, like it's just like it's much more difficult, like between rehearsal, like between managing my classes, it just there were more sacrifices that had to be made. I had to learn that like if I want to do theater and I want to have like academic majors and not have a theater major, it's just, yeah, there's less of me to go around.
Emily and then Robbie, great points, Sam.
Yeah, I think just personally, like when you're at Meadows, it's kind of an experience where you go from school to your extracurricular, to doing homework, to going to sleep or whatever. I went to school, I came home, I went to cross country practice, got really tired from cross country practice, and then I would do my homework. And I remember a big thing for me, it was like trying to find time to actually run and like work out while you're at school too, because I was so used to like having a sport, like doing cross country or track and field every day. And so like having an organized thing to go to work out. So then suddenly when I was on my own, it kind of like was helpful for me to talk to my friends, be like, hey, do you guys want to go for a run? Do you want to go to this place? Do you want to go work out with me or something like that? Just to find like people to inspire you to do it too, because not having a sport is a big thing. And just kind of it's weird because when you're in college and everyone always says that like the workload is harder, but you have more time. And I kind of found that to be totally true. Like my classes were definitely more difficult than high school classes, of course, but I definitely had more time to study for my big exams and to work on my lab reports and stuff like that. And you really have to take advantage of like the hour and a half in between your classes or something. Because in the way that it's like you go to school and then you come home and you do homework like you do in high school, you don't really do that in college. Like I'd go to my early morning like neuro class and then I'd have an hour and a half before I had to go to chem, so then I could review my chemistry like formulas and stuff like that before going to class and like studying in class and stuff like that. So definitely take advantage of the time in between your class slots, because reviewing—
You didn't go back to your room and play video games?
I don't know. Sometimes I would meet my friends at cafes and just hang out for like an hour and a half and just talk, because I definitely needed a break. Yeah. But I like this, you also kind of have to like, I'd meet my friend for coffee sometimes because he was in my chem and neuro classes and all that too. And we would just go over like our lab reports and talk about it all and that kind of thing. Definitely take advantage of a lot of I'm fortunate in that most of my friends are also STEM majors for some reason. We all just kind of found each other by no apparent reason. And so it's really nice because for pre-med, I do have to take like physics and calculus and statistics and stuff, which is a neuroscience bio person is not anything I'm looking forward to at all. Thankfully, SP taught me physics, but like I'm not looking forward to college physics still, but some of my friends are math majors or physics majors. And so I'm very excited that I have friends that can help me with those things and that I can help my friends with their like intro bio class or whatever now, because I'm in the higher level neuro classes. But like, so having friends that might be in like if you're kind of in STEM, then having friends in like different parts of STEM or even in the humanities, like just having people to like read your work or like definitely have friends and like don't take advantage of your friends, but like work together to like help each other on homework and stuff. That's huge.
Yeah. Robbie?
Yeah, so people have said a lot of very good things. I think my advice for at least time management will be pretty basic. I think the first thing that I'd want to say is just like, it's true that like at Meadows, you're able to do like everything. You definitely, I think just because time is so structured and it's when there's like external structure in place, it's a lot easier to do a lot of different things. But I think a main difference with college is that you are your own worst enemy. Like you determine how much time you spend studying, you determine how much time you spend socializing with friends, you determine how much time you spend taking part in extracurriculars. And that's great, but it can also be like a little bit overwhelming. And so like, I definitely know my personal like path in college was like super roundabout. I signed up for a bunch of things my first year, and my second year, I threw them all away. I didn't do any of them my second year. I did completely different stuff. I only found out what I was majoring in. I figured out that I wanted to major in computer science like towards the end of my sophomore year. And then I realized that like I wanted to go to grad school at like the end of my junior year. And so like there was a lot of last minute changes that I was able to do. I think it depends. Like some people's programs are a lot more flexible than others, so that is something to consider. And then also like if you know that you're passionate in something going into college, you definitely can invest a lot of time in that, and you will, like 4 years is a lot of time to invest in something. So like you could definitely see that sort of payoff throughout your time at college as well. Just saying, like if you're like me and you're just sort of like, I don't really know what I want, there's a lot of flexibility, and I wouldn't worry too much about like trying to fit everything you need to do into a certain time frame, because 4 years is a lot of time. That being said, the second piece of advice that I want to give that's going to be really basic is go to class, especially with COVID. Something that I was experiencing last semester was that a lot of classes basically abruptly had to go online. And what that meant for a lot of people, especially in grad school, is that, oh, everything's recorded. I'm not going to go to lecture on time, and I'm just going to watch the recording. The problem with that mindset that I personally experienced was that you have to hold yourself accountable to watching those lectures. And so a friend of mine was teaching this class that I was taking, and he was joking with me. He's like, I could tell when quarantine hit based on your homework grades. Because it's a lot harder to keep yourself accountable to go to class, especially with COVID. And then I think something also that I experienced when I went into college in my freshman year was that a lot of people sometimes they like try to brag like, oh, I'm able to do all these things, and like I'm not going to class. You should go to class. It might be that you can you probably heard this tons of times in high school, and it's super annoying, but it's like people will say, oh, there's going to be a point where you just can't coast. Like you're going to have to start trying. You're going to have to start going to class. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to do the material. And so like something I definitely experienced was that like earlier on in college, Meadows did over prepare me for the coursework. Like I felt like I was very much able to handle the courses I was taking and the course load that was required of them. But something I found is that like later on in my college career, when I was taking more advanced classes, that wasn't necessarily the case, which is that like I had instilled some bad habits where like I wasn't going to class as much as I should have. And I realized that like, yeah, my academics suffered because of that. Was it like debilitating? No, it's just the sort of thing I was like, oh, I wish I went to class. It would have made my life a little bit easier. And then, yeah, the third thing I wanted to talk about was just roommate stuff. Something that helped me a lot. I wouldn't say I had a nightmare roommate situation. I just had it made me want to I realized living with someone that I personally enjoy my personal space. So, but something that really helped me when I had a roommate was just having a roommate contract and like saying like, these are my like things that I would really appreciate if you could do. And like, if you don't do them, then we violated this roommate contract. And so something that was important to me was just like, oh, I just want to be able to actually get some sleep. And so like, we like agreed that we wouldn't try and do anything, like we wouldn't try and violate it. Of course, things are violated, but it's just good to have those like guidelines, or like good to have your expectations spoken before the year starts.
Thank you, Robbie. These are great. Sydney, did you have Ramnowski?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Robbie, I'm just gonna bounce off of what Robbie said.
Please.
In response to like your programs are some programs are more flexible than others. Like I'm a business major. So if you're sports or performing arts, like your schedule is you're gonna have practice, you're gonna have auditions, stuff like that, where it's gonna take up most of your time. If you're bio, chem, or pre-med, you will have a very different experience. Emily is giving me a thumbs up. A lot of my friends, their time was taken up by studying all the time. And I was just like, wow, that's crazy. Imagine that, studying all the time. Because I just didn't have to. Especially like my freshman classes, I was just so prepared. I took stats in high school with Mr. Mysick, shout out to him. And like I literally just didn't have to study for my tests because the material, he prepared me so well for the material in college. Like I had to study a little bit, but when I would be frustrated in high school with the concepts I didn't understand, I didn't have that experience because I went through it in high school, not in college. But bio majors, shout out to them. I don't know how they do it. I would never be able to do it. They're just incredible. And if you're a bio major, it's going to be hard, but everyone loves it. It's kind of like you're in it together kind of a thing. You kind of suffer together. At least that's what I've gotten. But anyways, the things that fill up my time, Not that I don't study, I do study. It's not that it's easy, but it's just not as hard. But I went into college with the mentality of like, join everything, and if you don't like it, just quit. So I joined everything, and then I did not like anything, so I just kept with it, and then I was kind of stuck with all of it. So like my friends were like, is there anything you don't do? So yeah, just you can fill your schedule up with extracurriculars, and I highly suggest that's how you meet people too. I met so many people through those kinds of organizations, and you find passions that you didn't think you had before. But also, Robbie mentioned going to class. Even if I saw this statistic or something that some kids believe that they learn 80% of the stuff in class, 20% outside, and vice versa. I believe that I learned 20% in class and 80% outside, just because I have a hard time concentrating. That's just my personal experience. So I teach myself a lot of things outside of the classroom. But even if you are someone like me and you're like, no, going to class is like so useless, I'm not going to learn anything, definitely still go, because they might say something that could click with you. But also building relationships with your teachers is so important. And I think that Meadows does an incredible job with that. Because even if you don't want at Meadows, even if you don't want to communicate with your teachers, you're kind of forced to at some point, if it gets to like that, if it gets that bad. But they are more inclined to help you if you show up. So also I've met incredible mentors that are, I'm going to want to keep relationships with for the rest of my time at SMU. And I know that if I need advice or if I need a letter of recommendation, I will be able to go to them and reach out. But that's just me.
Thank you. Well, we're coming up on 11 o'clock. How time flies. I just wanted to if we could just maybe like take a few minutes, each of you, to just, if you could give one piece of advice, right, to our students and parents who just graduated and are looking forward to their first year, what advice would you give? Or what's something that you would tell yourself, right? If you could give advice to yourself when you were, 4 years ago or whatever, what would you tell yourself? So whoever wants to go first. Yes, Emily.
So I think for me, one of the biggest things that like I would advise upcoming college students is try not to go into it with these overwhelming expectations. Like, don't put this pressure on yourself that it's going to be the best 4 years of your life, or that you're going to have to make like friends within this like time frame or something like that. Try to just be like really easy on yourself. Like don't put too much pressure on yourself, because you're going somewhere entirely new. You're taking classes that are going to be a little bit more difficult. There's going to be a lot of new factors that you're not even going to take into consideration as being kind of scary or different or having to think about and stuff like that. So definitely try to go easy on yourself. And then also, like, I would always say, like, for my biggest advice is just kind of, you're gonna find friends. Like, I think I was a little nervous. Like, I'd gone to Meadows since preschool. I was like, oh my gosh, what if I'm not good at making friends, or that kind of thing, like the total basic anxiety. And I just found some of my best friends in the weirdest, funniest ways, like through a friend of a friend. And I met my two best friends at a meeting for the radio show, and we ended up meeting each other and deciding to start a radio show together. And we'd do our radio show at like 1 a.m. on Fridays after, and all of our friends would come over after parties and stuff and come to the radio show and stuff like that. And it was just such an odd experience, because I really like music, but I didn't think I was like a radio show kind of person, and now I'm on management for it. And it's just kind of, life works in super funny ways. Everything is kind of random, and college is such a big way of saying that. Like, you're going to become such a new, cool version of yourself, and you're going to have so many amazing experiences. Just don't put too much pressure on yourself, and enjoy the people you meet and the experiences you have along the way, and just be excited. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be an amazing experience for all of you.
Thank you, Emily. Sydney?
I love what Emily said about friends in college, because everyone looks like they've found their friend group within the first month, and in reality, you don't find your lifelong college friends probably until sophomore year. Or at least that's what I've been seeing. Also, if you're a super lifer like me, and I found my bestest friends in the world in 5th grade at Meadows and stayed with them until graduation, that feeling of friendship is rare. So don't expect the same kind of feeling going into college for your first year. It may seem on social media that everyone's having like the darndest time at all these parties. Just like do your own thing, zone in on you. But in terms of advice, I would definitely say have fun. Like we can all spout so much advice to you guys during the next hour. I'm sure we could go another hour if we really tried. But like be open to things that you didn't think that you would be. I mean, a lot of the people on this panel is a great example because a lot of us ended up going elsewhere for college, whether it's Texas or Maine, for example. Like anything, like be open, weather-wise, class-wise. Like I think I took a women's studies like in sci-fi or something weird like that. Like those are the experiences, quite honestly, it's going to be difficult to find once you're out of college and you're starting your career to branch out like that. So have fun with it, be open. Also text your parents once in a while. The last one I would say.
Thank you. Sam?
Yeah, so I've had like a drastically different college experience than I had ever imagined for myself. And I imagined it a lot for a very, very long time. I wanted to go to Yale since I was 10 years old. And upon arriving there, I realized that it's much different to actually experience an environment than it is to dream about it. Because I am who I am. I can't really change my chemistry to adapt to New Haven or whatever it is. I'm not saying, oh my God, transferring is like the best thing ever, but for me, it kind of was. I never expected to transfer from Yale. I did my first semester at Yale. I did my second semester abroad in London, and I landed in New York City in the fall. So it's been a wild ride, but I was kind of rigid in high school. I had such a list of things that I wanted to achieve in college. I was going to be a theater major. I was going to like do whatever. And like, it's just like, I think it's difficult to say this like in preparation for getting there, because I think it's just something that like everybody has to suss out for themselves. I can say like be open, be whatever, but like that's not really a possibility until you get there and you realize that it's not an option. Like you just kind of have to roll with it. And I have 2 very close friends still from Yale. I have my 3 really close friends from London. I met my boyfriend in London and he's at Michigan. It's just like you find like this web of people, and like my best friend from Columbia is like here with me right now in Vegas. And so it's just like you get to meet all these people in all of these different places. And I don't know, like obviously COVID also threw me for a loop. I've yet to spend a full year on campus and I'm entering my junior year. But I'm rolling with it, you know. Hopefully senior year I'll be on campus. You know, so I don't know. I think it's just like yeah, I think it's just like you have to put yourself in that spot where you're open and you're positive, and you might not check everything off your list. It's great to go in with big aspirations. I still have huge aspirations, but it's just, you know, being okay with how things unfold.
Thank you, Sam. Sid, Robbie?
I can go, or you can go, or
okay. Last
go
minute
advice. Sorry, I would just say, like, you went to Meadows and they prepared you to be able to be and do everything that you want. And you have the ability to join anything because Meadows prepared you to be able to do it all. And everyone's version of being able to do it all is going to be different. Like all of us, I feel like, have been very successful in college and we've been super busy, but our schedules look completely different. And I believe that the excuse, I don't have time, doesn't really exist in the world of college, because in comparison to Meadows, you have all the time in the world. And I would just say, just join anything you're interested in or just slightly interested in, because one, you can quit if you don't like it. But also that's how you meet people. That's how you find your passions. And that's how you meet your mentors that will probably change your life forever. Like if you asked me a year ago if Emily was going to be doing like a radio thing, I wouldn't have been able to guess that. And I'm sure that's because she just like went into college saying, I'm open to anything. Like, that's so cool. That's the first I'm hearing of it, but that's like amazing. It's so different. And that's how you're going to find things that you love. And it might not go all your way. It might not all go your way. Like I had the roommate thing or whatever, but you learn from the experiences. Like just going to college, just thankful for everything. We're so fortunate too. Like not everyone gets these 4 years, and don't expect it immediately to be the best 4 years of your life, because it will end up being that. But right away, you might have to adjust a little bit for it to be the best 4 years of your life. But just, you can be anyone you want to be, and you can do whatever you want to do. And it's because Meadows prepared you really well. So just try everything. That's my advice.
Thank you, Sid. And last but not least, Robbie.
Yeah, so I think I'm pretty much just going to echo what everyone else has said. Like, I think be open and flexible to the various experiences that are going to come your way. Something I would really just like to emphasize, though, is that I think when you're like applying for college, especially, you like construct this image of yourself. You're like, oh, I'm going to go to this school and I'm going to do this. I think something that's really important to just like internalize is that it's okay if you don't do that. It's okay. It's totally okay to like change your mind with what you're going to do. Like if you say that you want to go in and be a pre-med, you don't have to stay a pre-med for all 4 years. And that being said, just like also like be super forgiving with yourself. Like if there is something that you know that you want to do, but like say you took bio, like if you're a pre-med and say you failed bio, that doesn't mean that you can't be a doctor, right? That's just, it's like you're going to face a variety of different setbacks while you're trying to pursue the things you're going to pursue. And just like realize that like any of those setbacks individually isn't going to prevent you from doing the thing that you want to do. And that's sort of vague advice, but I think that's sort of like held true for me at least.
Thank you.
Can I jump right off of Robbie and say, I would just say also, don't be afraid to be a first. And what I mean by that is like what Robbie was saying, like at my school, Vassar, it's not a university. There were not going to be, I know that at one point there was a question about like career offices. There wasn't going to be a lot of opportunity for that. And so Sam was like, get close to your professors. Like there are always going to be ways to do what you want to do. Even if no one else has done it before, just do your own thing. There are not a lot of people that triple major or do something similar like what I did. That doesn't mean it's not possible. You just got to make it your own.
Love it. Thank you all so much. I hope this has been helpful and informative and entertaining too for all of our students and parents that have attended and watched. And we'll be posting this also on our website so that others can absorb all of that wonderful knowledge and advice that all of you had to share. But just want to say thank you so much. And our thoughts are with you. We hope that you stay safe and stay healthy and well, and enjoy the rest of your summer before your year begins.